Planes grounded at midnight, embassies lighting up with frantic calls, borders that once welcomed travelers now slam shut. And no, this isn't some dystopian movie trailer, it's real and it's happening. From Africa to Asia, major nations are suddenly pulling back the welcome mat for Americans. And this time, it's not just about politics, it's deeper. Economics, national security, even payback. Some of these travel bans, quietly enforced, others announced loud and clear. So what triggered this global pushback right now? What's really going on beneath the surface? And more importantly, what does this mean for Americans still living under the illusion that the world is just a plane ticket away? Sometimes, global collapse doesn't begin with war or financial meltdowns. Sometimes it starts with a passport. Number 10. It's not just missiles flying out of Russia. Travel bans are taking off too. Russia has now cut nearly all civilian travel ties with the US. Visas? Denied. Borders? Tightened. Restrictions? Only getting worse as 2025 rolls on. But this isn't just about the war in Ukraine. It's about something bigger. Pride, power, and a shifting world order. The US and Russia, two nuclear heavyweights, aren't just at odds. They're diplomatically unraveling right in front of us. Is this the long-term fallout from sanctions, proxy conflicts, and spy games? Or is it something even deeper, something permanent, with dual citizens facing sudden arrests, a surge in espionage accusations, and Russia pivoting hard toward China and the BRICS bloc? One thing is clear. Moscow is building a future where the US doesn't even get a seat at the table. And for any American still thinking about crossing that border, it's no longer just difficult. It's risky. Number 9. Japan. You might have the passport. You might even have your flight booked. But in 2025, that doesn't guarantee you'll actually make it through immigration. American travelers heading to Japan are facing a shift, one that's flying under the radar. It's not the result of some big new law or dramatic headline. Instead, it's a quiet storm of policy tweaks and rising unease behind the scenes. Entry denials are climbing. Visas are under more scrutiny. And while nothing seems official on paper, something serious is shifting under the surface. Japan has always prized stability, order, and trust. But lately, there's growing concern in Tokyo about what officials are calling unpredictable diplomacy out of Washington. Trade tensions, U.S. military moves in the Pacific, and a general dip in global confidence are making even the most loyal allies uneasy. And here's the twist. Japan is deepening ties elsewhere. Southeast Asia, the EU, even China. Sure, Americans still technically enjoy visa-free entry for short trips, but at the border, the vibe has changed. Travelers are reporting longer questioning, demands for more documentation, and in rare but rising cases, being turned away altogether. It's not an outright ban, but the message is loud and clear. Trust is wearing thin. And there's more. Japan is quietly signaling interest in adopting a travel screening system similar to Europe's upcoming ETIAS program, set to roll out in 2026. If that happens, the screening won't just be about safety anymore. It might be about geopolitics. So here's the big question. Could Japan become the next country to subtly sideline American visitors? And if it does, what does that mean for the millions who've long seen Japan as one of America's last strongholds of friendship in the East? Number 8. Chad. Military forces on standby, flights rerouted, and American travelers stop before they even boarded. This isn't some glitch or isolated incident. Chad's decision to block entry to U.S. citizens is deliberate, and it's a warning. This landlocked country, sitting at a critical crossroads in Central Africa, has long been seen as a strategic partner. But not anymore. After years of tense diplomacy, rising instability in the region, and a quiet but firm pivot toward Russia and China, Chad has begun redrawing its alliances. And the message couldn't be clearer. The United States is no longer welcome. Remember back in 2017, when Chad was briefly placed on the U.S. travel ban list? That move sparked outrage, and it left a scar, one that never truly healed. Fast forward to today, and that simmering distrust has reached a boiling point. Now, with US influence waning and global loyalty shifting, Chad is drawing a bold line in the sand. And here's what makes it more than just a local issue. When a smaller nation like Chad stands up and says, enough, it's not just politics. It's a signal. A signal that the world order is changing, that even countries once considered too small to matter are now making big moves and sending clear messages. So here's the real question. If Chad's willing to push back, who's next? Stick with us. This gets deeper. Number 7. New Zealand. No war, no sanctions, and yet Americans are finding it harder than ever to get in. And what's shocking? Almost no one is talking about it. In 2025, the island nation quietly shifted its immigration posture toward U.S. citizens. There's no official ban, but in practice, the friction is real. Visa approvals are taking longer. Routine security checks now flagged for deeper scrutiny. What used to be a smooth entry process is now layered with red tape. And this isn't happening in a vacuum. New Zealand's leadership has been increasingly blunt, calling out the U.S. for what they see as a destabilizing global presence, from climate policy failures to rising geopolitical tensions. Officials have even started raising public concerns about specific types of American travelers: digital nomads, investors, and dual citizens. Are they bringing value or creating vulnerabilities in the Pacific region? But here's where it gets especially interesting. New Zealand is expanding its own pre-travel authorization system, the NZETA. It's already active for some visitors and will tighten further in 2025. This system mirrors Europe's upcoming ETIAS, set to launch in 2026. And while it's framed as a security measure, critics warn the criteria can shift, and once it does, these systems can become powerful tools of selective exclusion, denials without drama, bans without headlines. Add to that New Zealand's growing alignment with regional partners, Australia, the ASEAN bloc, and the picture gets clearer. The once warmly welcoming Kiwi nation is quietly stepping back from U.S. influence. So, is this the start of a soft ban? A slow-motion freeze where Americans aren't officially blocked, but slowly, subtly boxed out? Tourism might bounce back eventually, but diplomacy? That's changing. And in today's world, where international reputation is a form of currency, the U.S. might be running short, in places it never thought it could. New Zealand used to be the go-to escape for Americans looking for peace, but in 2025, that door isn't wide open anymore. Number 6, Canada. You might think the border is always open just because it's friendly. Think again. In 2025, cracks are beginning to show in what used to be one of the most stable relationships on the planet, Canada and the United States. And for American travelers, expats, and investors, the red flags are getting harder and harder to ignore. On the surface, everything seems normal. Visa-free access, shared culture, thousands of miles of open border. But dig just a little deeper, and things are shifting. Immigration processing is slower, denied entries are creeping up, and Americans with even minor prior offenses, things that used to be waived, are now triggering extra scrutiny. Here's what few are hawking about. Canada is quietly overhauling its immigration screening, tightening its digital security systems, and syncing parts of its policy with Europe's upcoming travel rules. While Europe's ETIAS isn't live until 2026, Canada's already ahead of the curve. Its ETA pre-screening system is already active. Technically, yes, Americans can still visit without a visa, but enforcement has shifted. Arrive without a detailed itinerary? Can't prove funds or a return ticket? You might be pulled aside, questioned, or even sent back. So, what's changed? A lot of it comes down to economics and politics. Housing shortages in cities like Toronto and Vancouver have fueled resentment toward foreign buyers, many of them American. At the same time, Canada's political climate is polarizing, and there's less appetite to rubber stamp foreign influence, even from its closest neighbor. And don't forget, after 2020, waves of dual citizens and expats flooded north, overwhelming local systems. That surge left a mark. And now, Canada is asking tougher questions. Not just who is coming, but why. So here's the chilling thought. Could the US-Canada border, the friendliest in the world, be the next flashpoint in the unraveling of American global mobility? Because when even Canada starts quietly closing the door, it's not just about travel anymore. It's about trust, pressure, and what happens when your closest allies start stepping back. Number 5, Uruguay. For decades, it was the quiet escape, the place Americans went to retire, reinvent, or just disappear. But in 2025, that door, it's starting to close. Officially, Americans still enjoy visa-free travel to Uruguay, but behind the scenes, the welcome mat is being slowly pulled back. Border checks are longer. Financial questions are sharper. One-way tickets and lack of income proof, that's now enough to get you turned away. On the spot. So, what's behind the shift? Uruguay has long been Latin America's poster child for democracy and stability, but that stability comes with boundaries. And after years of Americans buying up land, homes, and beachfront property, government officials are asking, is this sustainable? Is it even welcome? Local politicians are now openly voicing concerns about foreign land ownership, real estate inflation, and unchecked economic influence creeping in under the radar. At the same time, Uruguay is realigning globally. It's expanding trade ties with China and the EU and quietly stepping away from long-standing U.S. alliances. It's also keeping a close eye on Europe's ETS rollout in 2026 and exploring similar pre-screening tools of its own. There's no fiery speech, no big headline, but travelers are feeling it, especially digital nomads and long-term stayers. They're being hit with tougher questions. What's your intent? Where's your money coming from? Why here? So here's the question. Is Uruguay the next country to impose a soft freeze on U.S. citizens? And maybe the bigger question, how many so-called friendly nations are already changing the rules quietly without ever saying it out loud? Because sometimes a travel ban doesn't come with a press release. It comes with a polite smile at the immigration desk, followed by a cold, quiet no. And in Uruguay, that no is showing up more and more. Number 4, Germany. When the heart of Europe starts locking its doors, the ripple effects stretch far beyond the continent, including straight across the Atlantic. Germany, the largest economy in the European Union, is rethinking how it welcomes the world, and Americans are no longer getting a free pass. In 2025, traveling to Berlin or Munich isn't as simple as packing a bag and booking a flight. American visitors are facing more questions, deeper inspections, and yes, even entry refusals. Why? Because Germany is laying the groundwork for ETS, the European Travel Information and Authorization System, which officially goes live in 2026. Once that system is in place, every U.S. traveler will need pre-authorization to enter the EU. That means disclosing travel history, answering security and risk-based questions, being flagged, possibly before even boarding a plane. But here's what most people don't know. Germany is already beta testing this new screening process. That includes stricter border checks, real-time data sharing across EU nations, and a new level of scrutiny, especially for Americans traveling solo, those with vague itineraries, or anyone with past visa issues. Some are being detained for questioning. Others are simply turned around at the gate. This isn't just political, it's strategic. Germany is facing intense domestic pressure, from immigration surges to rising internal security threats. And as Europe's gatekeeper, Germany is taking the lead in recalibrating the rules. The message? The era of automatic entry is over. The friendly, open-door Europe many Americans remember, it's fading. And Germany is leading that transformation. So before you pack that bag or book that flight, ask yourself, will your next trip to Germany even begin? Because in this new travel landscape, a valid passport isn't always enough. Number 3, Australia. Border closed, flights rerouted, and for the first time in modern history, an ally started treating Americans like a liability. Australia once rolled out the red carpet, beaches, study abroad programs, startup visas, booming trade with U.S. companies. It was a tight, almost unbreakable relationship. But then came the pandemic. And when Australia shut its borders in 2020, it didn't just keep out the virus, it kept out the world, including Americans. Fast forward to 2025, and that lockdown mentality, it never fully went away. Now, quietly and without fanfare, Australia is reworking its entire visa system. And here's the twist. The shift favors regional neighbors. Visitors from Southeast Asia, Pacific Island nations, even parts of the EU are getting streamlined access. Americans? Not so much. Longer wait times, more rejections, especially for work, residency, or investment visas. And even short-term travelers are reporting tighter scrutiny at entry points. So what changed? Some say it's about security. Others say it's economics. But more and more Australians are now openly asking, is the U.S. alliance still worth it? Or is it becoming a risk? Yes, Australia is deeply embedded in the Five Eyes intelligence network, a pillar of Western defense. But with rising tensions involving China, Russia, and Iran, that alliance could just as easily make Australia a target. And public opinion is shifting. Polls in 2025 show growing skepticism about automatic alignment with U.S. foreign policy. People are beginning to say, maybe we need more space. And here's where it gets serious. Australia has long considered launching a travel pre-screening system, a digital gatekeeping protocol much like Europe's ETS, set to go live in 2026. The tech is ready. The policy? Quiet, but very real. Could Australia soon begin flagging or even filtering out American travelers before they even board a plane? Because when your closest allies start rebalancing, redrawing, and reconsidering, it's not just about visas anymore. It's about trust. And once that starts to crack, it rarely heals clean. Number 2. The United Kingdom. When even the so-called special relationship starts to feel strained, you know the global order is shifting. In 2025, more and more American travelers are finding out the hard way, getting into the UK isn't as easy as it used to be. We're talking longer wait times, increased scrutiny, entry refusals over things that once barely raised an eyebrow. And it's not just tourists feeling the squeeze. Digital nomads, entrepreneurs, even students are seeing visa delays, denials, and sudden requests for additional documentation that didn't used to be part of the process. So, what's going on? Ever since Brexit, the UK has been rewriting its place on the world map, rethinking immigration, trade, and diplomacy from top to bottom. And part of that recalibration includes its approach to US travelers. There's no official ban, no explosive headlines, but behind closed doors, British policymakers are talking about 3 things: balance, sovereignty, control. The friendly wave-through Americans once got at passport control? That's fading fast. In today's post-Brexit, post-pandemic Britain, those old assumptions about privilege, about automatic entry, they just don't hold up anymore. And here's where it gets even more interesting. The UK isn't in the European Union, but it's watching the EU's upcoming ETIAS system very closely. That's the digital travel pre-screening protocol the EU launches in 2026. Meanwhile, the UK already has its own version, the ETA, Electronic Travel Authorization, which quietly began rolling out in 2023 and is rapidly expanding in 2025. So what happens when London decides to tighten the screws on who gets in? Could the UK start quietly filtering out Americans who don't meet the new invisible bar? Because this isn't just about visas anymore. It's about global repositioning. It's about trust, and who gets to come in and who gets quietly sidelined. And if the United Kingdom, America's oldest and closest ally, is leading this quiet retreat, what comes next might be far more dramatic. Number 1. France. Try landing in Paris in 2025 with a one-way ticket, fuzzy travel plans, and a US passport, and just see how fast things go sideways. France might still be the land of croissants, couture, and cobblestone romance, but behind the postcard scenes, something big is shifting, and it's already catching American travelers off guard. France has always been one of the most visited countries in the world. Millions pour in every year for the food, the fashion, the fantasy. But that golden welcome mat, it's quietly being rolled back. Over the past year, France has started tightening its entry protocols, especially for what officials now call risk-based profiles. That includes solo travelers, digital nomads, retirees, anyone without clear financial or medical documentation. So, why the sudden scrutiny? Because France, like the rest of Europe, is gearing up for a travel revolution. ETIAS, the European Travel Information and Authorization System, goes live in 2026.